Project Up from Comcast is working to help advance digital equity and build a world of unlimited possibilities. From connecting people to the internet to opening doors for innovators, entrepreneurs, storytellers, and creators, we can help create a future that benefits generations to come. Over the next 10 years, Comcast is committing $1 billion to reach tens of millions of people with the opportunities and resources they need to succeed in an increasingly digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/projectup.
Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas, and you are listening to another episode of my podcast. This is going to be the last episode on rationality. We came very far. So far, we did a lot of explanation, or we went through a lot of examples, which I think was necessary and very important, and we some sort of left out definitions in the beginning, because I said we would rather, or we had some sort of loose definitions about those three forms of rationality. So one form of rationality, especially biological rationality, I may have to more elaborate today. We'll see on that. However, those definitions, we will talk about them today. I know definitions may not be very important outside of philosophy. I hope that what you heard so far was understandable, that it is not always the case that people act what you would wish for, and this would mean that people would act good. So this, everyone would agree, yeah, this is rational to always act good, and we even know from the antique philosophers, or from the philosophers of the antiquity, that every human would crave, or would always aim for the good, or would act in accordance for good. Yeah, why is there then so much bad and evil in this world? Of course, there is a lot of explanation, and so on and so forth. And we said that, or at least I hope that it came through, that it is not always that people only consider their personal gain, but rather there are more issues or more variables in your calculation, that you do not think only and solely about yourself, but about your family, about your friends, about your spouses as well. And these things, they determine your behavior, or what you choose, or which alternative you choose. And especially in Lord of Flies, this novel, which of course again we will have to consider very cautiously. We cannot, this is fiction, this is novels. It played in a different time frame. With a different time frame, I mean literature written in and during the Cold War has a little bit or has a different notion to it, or if there is an author or a writer who some sort of was in a way influenced by the old world. I don't want to diminish that at all, but you know what I mean. People who some sort of were educated by old school, they have a different approach on things. So we cannot just some sort of apply our circumstances and our understanding from the present to past occurrences and to past thinkings. Anything that would be, for example, inappropriate today was normal back in the days. We cannot judge someone according to that. We always assume that everyone acted according to what he knew. This is what we again emphasized in the Lord of Flies. They knew only anything, or they only knew about one society which worked, and this was democracy, and they tried to apply it. So they did not know anything better, and then the circumstances some sort of forced their hand, and they had to adapt. This is pretty much normal in a way, in a human way. This is what you find in politics as well. I mean, one great example is Germany after the First World War, which circumstances hyperinflation and so on and so forth, some sort of led to some certain radicalization. This is true, and so on and so forth. So we have this anywhere. We have this in the US with the presidency of Donald Trump. Previously, people felt that they were not being taken serious enough, or that their voices are not being heard, and then someone who promised that he would come or is not part of the political elite is true, but everyone assumed that he would do better, when in the end it did not turn up that way, so it was pretty much messy and so on. But however, people some sort of assume that way, some sort of notion, rational. Again, and I think talking about rationality was indeed very interesting indeed, and this is not the end of it. There is a lot of things you should talk about, or we should have to discuss as well. So in the future, I will some sort of talk about happiness as well. This is another great topic I've been thinking about, and especially about good. So we will maybe talk about happiness and what is good. Why do we aim for it, or are we aiming for good, or only about things we assume give us goodness and so on. So this would be again some sort of a cause for rationality. But I hope so far that our inquiry into rationalism in these three forms, that they some sort of engaged everyone to broadly think about your world. It is not only all about egoism. People do have either values. I mean, we some sort of only portray it from a negative perspective. We some sort of only saw criminals. The prison dilemma, and that Bonnie and Clyde some sort of get each other free. Well, this is not, or this should not be considered one-sided at all, so that only criminals can organize themselves, not at all. So decent people who truly love, can organize themselves as well. So, for example, communities who help each other out, or charity in that sense, which really is about the people, which is really about helping people. And again, I have to emphasize this: I did not by any means try to diminish charity. I did not try to some sort of undermine people's hard efforts to help other people. This is honorable, this is good. Those who have money should help other people if they see fit. However, not at all. So we did not undermine this, and I have to repeat this. But again, there are people in society who think that way. We see this in celebrities. I hope that you agree with me there, that there are some celebrities, no matter whether it seems that they would be doing good, however, they are always care, or they mostly care about their image. This is normal. I mean, if you are a celebrity, if you're an influencer on Instagram, you want to sell a product, you do this, of course, to not only about love for the product or whatsoever. You do this for yourself as well. You would be stupid if you would not think about your income. So I do as well think about income. I was not very successful so far. That's why I have to freeze here in Turkey in winter, and have not have some sort of be careful with my diet and so on and so forth. But I don't want to go into detail. This is not about me and so on. But it is true. I mean, everyone will some sort of consider his or her personal gain as well. But you are always embedded in a society, no matter whether you think that there is nothing like society, well, maybe or maybe not, but there is something like family. And this is something we already know from the Greek antiquity, that family, the oikos, is some sort of consists the society. This is the center of it all, no matter whether you are conservative or progressive or a liberal. Family, you would agree, some sort of where people get or these are the formative years from a psyche, and we have enough sociological and psychological research which proves that if someone grows up in a good family, in an understanding and supporting family, these persons are mostly very successful. And indeed, so, and if you were some fortunate enough, if you had the fortune to grow up in a good family, of course you will try to not only will you have a high opinion of family, but as well as you will some sort of protect your family. This, as well as with your wife, this is again something which is indeed a dilemma. I mean, we only consider it from a criminal perspective. But however, let's say, I don't know, if you have a wife and she some sort of needs something support or what have you, well, let's say your wife needs an organ or whatever, and you donate an organ to her because you want to be with her, and so on and so on and so forth. So you sacrifice something from your life or your well-being to be with someone else. And this is, I think, indeed something not we would assume as alien. So we are not all egoists, because if we would live in a society where everyone is an egoist, where everyone only cares about him or herself, then this would be pretty much scary and sad. So this is even in the religion, our religious duty, or as well as our moral principles command us to do good, to be in a society. If you go every day to Sunday church, these are the people you should feel comfortable having around, you care about, and you would hopefully want everyone to be well, to get through every calamity, whatever you have, and you would probably support these people. So religious charity is one of the oldest forms where we help people, altruism, and the social state, or the welfare state, which many people always forget this was actually introduced by conservatives. So just to be clear on that. And we will. I want to talk briefly about those three forms of rationality. Again, we have talked about it enough, I would say, at least from my perspective. Indeed, there are a lot of interesting stuff which is debatable, especially when we only see the news. In the news, we will always find a lot of things, not only in a criminal sense, but as well as in daily life, where we have to make choices how we should act, and we mostly act. This is what we try to prove as well from what we know. You do not, or if you some sort of enter a new sphere or a new slope, then you are always careful. You should be careful. Everything that is new to us, we are mostly careful, and we always try to apply common things we know. So it is not only that we would do much calculating, and so on and so forth. And of course, this is clear. One key component component of rational behavior is that it follows a goal. So it is not out of nowhere your personal goal. It could be your personal gain. It could be the gain of belonging to a group. It could be the gain of survival. This is what I try to explain, or why I separated biological rationalism from social rationalism, because biological rationalism, in that sense, it is still singular. It is still about you and about your species, but it is some sort of hybrid, because in a like this example on this island where you are around this attractive woman, you should better get rid of her. This is what rationality tells you, because you want to survive, but you do not do this. Instead, I don't know, you even father children with her. This is your biology speaking, some sort of pass your genes on to the next generation. This is some sort of an individual desire. This is true, because you do this for your own self. It is an instinct. This is in your genes, however, but it is for the benefit of your species, human. This is what we have to emphasize here as well. So this is the reason why we separated, why I separated biological rationalism, because it works a lot with instincts, which we do not have to much think about, which we do not have to much reflect about. So there are a lot of things in your life. I mean, this is like how you walk. This is, you have learned to walk, but when the age comes, you do not think much of it, and so on and so forth, as well as your survival instinct. If you are some sort of cornered in a way, or if you are some sort of haunted by a dangerous animal, adrenaline pumps through your body. So there are some biological processes working in you, which as well as determine how you act and how you behave, with much or with little or no reflection at all. Because in rationality, we mostly assume that we some sort of reflect about certain kinds of option, but this is not true. This is not something we do every day. So, or let me be clear on it. We would rather some sort of ruminate about one possible action or one possible outcome, if this is some sort of significant to us. I mean, what is significant to us from my social perspective, or from our social perspective, it would be if we buy some stuff. If we buy, I don't know, expensive a new car. If we want to buy a home, and so on and so forth. This needs deep reflection, or at least I hope that you think about these things carefully, not about buying a house. I think everyone should have a safe space, but as well, which house, how many money I want to invest, and so on and so forth. So these are things you deeply think about, but there are things you do not think much about it, but yet there is some sort of work automation, or they work in automatic, and so on. And these two things we might assume we have to separate as well. However, but those minor decisions we made, I mean, minor decisions would be, I don't know, do I want to eat lasagna today or steak? I mean, these are not very significant. Maybe if I suffer from high blood pressure, this may be a significant decision, but I would mean or assume that a significant decision is about our life, which could have severe consequences, or which could have significant consequences on our future. So the word significant is very entailed in this. And some of them, I mean, there are a lot of things. This is already known in the philosophy, but there are a lot of processes in our life which already work through automation. Let's imagine driving a car. You may have learned, or you learned how to drive a car, but the more you get experienced, the more you drive, you some sort of became pretty much professed in driving a car. So you do not think much of it anymore, and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of things in our life which some sort of work in an automatic way, and this we would have to explain this in a different way. Some sort of automation. This is still rational. Of course it is, because it was once rational when you learned it, or it served the purpose. Let's say, I don't know, you learn self-defense in order to protect your life against attackers, and then when you are being attacked, hopefully that you are already or that you a lot of things work with your reflexes and so on. However, but this would be then too much, or we would then lose ourselves in action, or in how to act to behavioral theories and so on and so forth. And this was not the goal of our inquiry of rationality, but rather that we some sort of try to work out firstly what is rationality, what is rational choice, and there we came through 3 forms of rationality. I will, for that matter, read the first form. This is, if I remind you, individual rationalism. This is what we said is some sort of single-minded. You care about your own personal goal. This is, we said, the first example of the prisoner dilemma. You don't know the guy whom you have robbed the bank with, or this may even seem generally so you think of yourself alone in the world. Let me give you an example. If you're a teenager, you are pretty much carefree, and you will most certainly act on your own account. You do not have any responsibilities. You don't have a wife. You don't have children. So for you, it is pretty much easy to only care about yourself. But later on, things get different. However, under individual rationalism, I have prepared a definition. Individual or single-minded rationality is an emotionally charged, goal-oriented action which is embedded in the frame of our historical and cultural knowledge, with a possible or hopeful result we know and assume for a personal gain. So this is what we some sort of subsumed through all those examples so far. Let me remind you about Lord of the Flies, where we said that firstly, actions have a goal. Secondly, they're historic. Thirdly, fear, or we say fear, or we can name it emotionally, have a key component to our understanding. What we did not talk about was culture, because culture is very important. It did not came up in Lord of the Flies. It was rather social, in those prison examples, it was rather social. Of course, culture is very important, and in our current time, culture, I would say, is one of the main determines how we act. So we act according to a certain cultural knowledge, but culture is of course very broad. Culture does not mean Christian culture, Judaism and so on. No. Culture has a broader meaning in that sense. If you, for example, belong to a social class, if you belong to a social milieu, let's say working class, middle class, or upper middle class, lower middle class, and so on, you have a certain culture. This is what sociology teaches us. So you have an understanding. This is what we tried to explain as well in this prison dilemma with this mobster. We only saw that they were mobsters and so on, but we want to emphasize, or I want to emphasize, that this has a lot to do with culture. We only talked about fear, that those mobsters would fear about their lives and their children. But however, it is as well as culture. If you are some sort of in a gang or in anything whatsoever, this does not mean this does not have to mean that this is all criminal. Not at all. There are some religious communities, for example, which help each other out, where we would not assume any, or where we do not have any criminal intent or organization. So and again, there plays a lot of culture. Religion plays a crucial role as well. This is what we saw with this little boy who did not steal this money from the church because he was afraid that he would come to hell and so on. So this is again part of your culture. And again, we did not talk much about moral principles and ethics. Those things are indeed very important, especially how you were brought up. I mean, if you were brought up that you should not steal by no means whatsoever, and that you should fear the results, of course, these things matter to you. We talked a little bit about utilitarianism and deontological ethics or morale. However, this was not sufficient enough. This was only to prove that rationality does not always work with ethics, or is some sort of, in a way, unethical. Let me remind you of this example with Bonnie and Clyde. So you do not always act morally right. Rather, we tend to favor our friends, our family, even though they did something wrong. We see in our families something which others do not see because we grew up with them. This is indeed different if you grew up with someone, if you knew someone from childhood on. This has a different meaning. Of course, you look at this person from a different angle. You look from this person in a different with different eyes. The same is among you. For example, if you have children, we look at our children in a different way than we would look at, let's say, the children of others, and so on. So these things, they play very, or they are very crucial indeed, and we want to emphasize this as well. So ethics, we only talked a little bit of it, and it is not enough. But then we talked about biological rationalism. Again, I have prepared a definition. Biological rationalism are actions which are led by biological and genetic dispositions with which goal we pursue consciously to cover basic human needs and desires, mostly to ensure not the survival of the individual, but of the entire species. So with some sort of here again we have this emphasis on basic needs, desires. This just means survival. Survival is your basic need, or that you find food, shelter. This is those who know the Pavlov pyramid. They know that you, in order or on your way to happiness, your basic needs have to be covered, and this means your basic needs, that you have food, that you have shelter, that you do not have to fear for your life, that you are secure, and so on and so forth. And if your basic needs are not covered, it is not likely that you feel happy. Where, of course, there are a lot of people who feel unhappy even though they have everything at all. We will talk about this as well. I have talked about unhappiness or political unhappiness happiness on another podcast, political science. So if you're interested in politics, please check this out. So, however, biological rationalism, again, we have this survival and basic needs. We have talked about it enough, I would assume. So I will some sort of go to social understanding or social rationalism briefly. Let me briefly again some sort of which is the problem with social rationalism is because it is really huge. Those people who know a little bit about sociology, there are a lot of literature, a lot of social research. There is Bourdieu and all those philosophers who wrote about all those social classes, about all those social milieus, and even the economy. Every retailer, every salesperson or company who sell products, they wanna know what people buy, what people fancy, how they can get more people to buy their products. This is a very broad topic and indeed a very interesting topic, and we only some sort of mentioned on a small part of it, and this was this prisoner dilemma about these mobsters or this this celebrity who acted altruistically because of the demands of his social environment. However, it is this is we some sort of plunged deep into sociology without giving enough explanation. Again, I have to refrain myself in going in a way too much into detail, because this would be an entire separate podcast where we would have to talk about sociology, about social implications. Indeed, a very interesting one. And if you're interested in politics and if you want to know how people firstly behave and might behave, then you should know a little a thing or two about sociology, because your social embeddedness has indeed or is determined or partially determines how you act, how you behave. Like in our prison example, if you fear for your family, if you fear for your loved ones, you will try to harm them, and no one is entirely egoistic, so you do take these things into your consideration, into your calculations. It would be sad if you would not care about your family at all. Even though all those people who some sort of stoutly defend that we should act morally right by any means necessary, they would be maybe appalled that in order to save your family that you act wrongly or unmorally, unethically, and so on and so forth. But these things, they happen, and they happen for a while, so not everyone just is a pure plain egoist. There are of course some people who, when they are already on fire, they try to burn others with them. You see these people in the media every time. These are people who are sad, or people shallow, people who do not have any moral values or anything at all. However, our first form of rationality I call social rationalism or social rationality. And the definition for social rationality is: social rationality are actions that are embedded in the social or cultural class / milieu of an individual, that aim at a perceived or stated value of the social bond the individual belongs to, gives meaning, follows rules and guidelines of a closed or closed social environment with the primary goal of either creating or maintaining the social bond and identity connected with the social and cultural environment. So there was now everything, a lot of I some sort of packed a lot of thing in one sentence, or tried to pack a lot of things into one. This is very common in philosophy, so we did this as well. This is important, and I tried to some sort of bring everything together. Social bond, we talked little about social bond, but it some sort of came over, especially in our example about the mobsters. You have some sort of a connection, you have maybe a fear, but as well as in general, you are connected to a social entity, This is either through religion, through culture, and so on and so these things matter as well, and these your belonging then constitutes your identity. This is what we said, which then happens with us versus them, and which again could lead to people acting in a certain way. This is actually very crucial and important in the ad industry. So if you make ads, you have to heed social barriers, social cleavages, and belonging. So every ad or everything you write, or in the movie industry, everything you portray is being perceived by some social entities differently. And so these things, they do matter. They do matter for the economy. This is an issue about billions and billions of dollars about sale, that you understand social identity, especially in our time with identity politics. If you some sort of consumer product, or if you own a phone or any good, it is not only about owning a product or just using it, but as well as about your identity. So this is indeed very crucial, and all those great companies who are very successful, they do not solely sell you a product, but they some sort of sell you an identity which you can enhance your self with. These things. So this to rationalism. And I want to talk a little bit about the future, about my future intentions. I mean, I will record one story, one novel. This time it will be in English, don't worry, so no more German audio takes. I think even this is useless, trying to record any audio in German. However, I write a little bit German in my mother tongue, no matter what it is. But then this will some sort of will be next, and then we will talk, or one desires to talk about happiness and unhappiness. I have been working on it, so especially with good. Is there a connection with good, happiness, and unhappiness? This will be then something we will deal with this year, maybe, and then next year. So I intend to stay in Turkey we'll see, probably next year, summer or so. And there we will some sort of continue our inquiries into very important topics in society, about crucial topics and so on, which I assume which everyone should be thinking about. Happiness. What should I do? What should I hope for? What is a good life? What is a happy life? These things are indeed interesting, because there is there should be a lot of answers. What is a happy life? One, should I count myself lucky? And if I should be lucky, why I do not feel happy, and so on and so forth, or why do I not feel blissful, and so on. So this is next. I wish and hope that you will join me in this intellectual journey where we try to find out more about human, about the world, about how we see the world, about our approach to world, and I hope that you all take care in this pandemic. That it is indeed dangerous times ahead now, with a lot of mutations. What one reads in the newspaper. So we are before Christmas. So I think this is.
How should you plan for when your home becomes too small, or when the next one gets too big? At Sandy Spring Bank, we're here to help create personalized solutions for financing your home loan. Whether it's a new home or refinance, renovation or addition, fixer-upper or new build. Banking is a conversation. Let's talk about your mortgage. Visit sandyspringbank.com/mortgage. Mortgage, home equity, and other credit products offered by Sandy Spring Bank, Equal Housing Lender.